Yeah.
Welcome to the very first Work From Home cast. We are going to be talking to various professionals, streamers, and influencers about making the transition to working from home. You are joined by me, Chris Slight, you know me, from the XSplit content team. You also know my friend over here, Lewis, from the XSplit content team. Lewis, how you doing?
Good. I think after about a year of working together now, this is the first time we're actually like really together on a video, right?
It is, yeah, because we do the state of streaming, but that's like filmed separately, and I just like edit it in. So yeah, I think so. Did we do the very first introduction live? I feel like we did the first introduction like this. So if you go back and watch that.
Yeah, I think we like tossed to each other a little bit there.
Oh, did we do that? I thought we... Oh, man. Well, here we are. And we're not alone, Lewis. We're with a guest.
I'll let you sing his praises, or should I, Chris? Do you think I should say who we're talking?
You do it, Lewis. Tell us about our guest.
All right, a little bit of intro for our guest before we bring him in. So he's a host with over 15 years of experience in the entertainment industry. That's film, radio, esports. He has a strong comedy background. He's worked with major brands like MTV, Smart, Google, PlayStation, Disney, Blizzard, and ESL. He's the #1 wedding MC in the Philippines, and he's hosted some of the biggest esports events in the world, such as Manila Masters, ESL1 Hamburg, Frankfurt. I think I'm going to butcher this, Katowice, right? Maybe not. And he has a super huge following across social media on Facebook and TikTok with over 700,000 followers. So let's give a warm welcome to the introductory episode to Eri Neeman.
Hey,
Eri.
What's up? Hey, Chris. Hey, Lewis. Lewis, it's Katowice. I said Katowice as well. Trust me. Like, I said the same thing. I was like, hey, Katowice. It's Katowice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't hurt. I'm sorry, my Polish friends.
It's an honor to have you here, man.
It's always okay when it's the ignorant American that butchers the word.
Yeah, I up my accent. All I'm from the third world, man. Just you know, here colonized.
We don't know.
But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you very much, man. I mean, I've watched a bunch of your stuff online in preparation for this, and yeah, you've got some really good stuff like that. And some of those credits, man, they are crazy. I mean, can you give us a little background into how you got into hosting and stuff?
Thanks so much, man. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really the same story for a host. I mean, you kind of fall into it. I mean, only a few people I would say when I grow up, I'm gonna be a host. You know, I mean, it's kind of like someone just asked me to do an event. I did enjoy being on stage. After one event, I'm just like, oh, I think. And then one person after the event said, "You did good. You should be a host." I'm like, host? Oh, what is that? And looked into it. Did one event after another. You know how it is, right? You do good one, you keep it going. People like your work. And then, you just try to get better as you go. And that's what got me started with hosting.
Yeah, I mean, so before the pandemic came in, and for hosts, I know, because I've done some hosting in my time, like, it really kind of put a wrap on a lot of stuff. But what was a typical project for you before the pandemic? Like, what did that look like for you before that? Like, you get a project in, like, what's kind of the little process for that?
It was the thing with hosts. I mean, you work with people in production, you work with brands, you work with events. I do many different kinds of events, but I kind of focus on celebrations, socials, and esports and everything. So what happens usually is you get a booking. They check your calendar. They see if you're available. You say you're available. And they ask for your rates, you give your rates. If it's all good, sometimes they negotiate here and there, sometimes it's good, sometimes, it's just the nature of the business. And if all is good, they'll send you a booking. Usually they ask for a down payment, or depends. And you just put together a contract, and that is a booking for a host, and come in, do the work that's intended, and that would be basically how it would go. It was really good. I mean, no one really expected events to take a hit the way it is, right? I mean, who could predict a pandemic, right? I mean, you're just like, yeah, we're good. And Lewis mentioned esports. I was on the way to kind of hosting my first major. I was booked for the LA major And that was kind of in my line of sights of getting one step closer to hosting TI or just getting be a part of TI for Dota. So because I do have that on my list. Hopefully I can do it before I retire, you know. But yeah, it was really perking. It was really working out, man. It was really. I mean, I've done my paid my dues a good amount, and worked my way up. At the most, I think my most events I had was like 26, 27 events in a month. Wow. And
In a month.
yeah, in a month. Yeah, like wow. That's a December, and you just go one after the other. And I love what I do. I mean, I really truly do. I love putting on a show for people. I love entertaining people. I love communicating and engaging and finding a way to connect with people, and still learning how to do that better. And you know, just evolve and grow in that aspect as a communicator and as someone who's connect to people. So that's how it was usually. But yeah, we all took a hit. I mean, not just events, everyone did.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, like the events that you mentioned that you had coming up, those are huge events. So like that's a big thing to miss. How did you? So when the pandemic hit and everything started getting cancelled, how did you pivot your work? Because you know, with work from home cast, like how did you pivot into what you're sort of doing now? What was kind of the first kind of changes and stuff you started making?
I first of all, it was just kind of accepting that okay, this was the situation. This is it. There was gonna be no work. Like your entire calendar, however many events I had, that was just wiped, right? And I kind of saw it as an opportunity to do things I've always wanted to do, but it never really had the time to do it because it was usually just meetings, rehearsals, hosting meetings, rehearsals, meet up with clients, meet up at a restaurant or wherever you meet up, and that's the cycle would go on for the year, and then you'd rarely get breaks. But I always had a affinity for memes and content. Like I've done that for esports. Lewis knows this, and in some aspects that we did for the FGC community, I've done it. I also was a writer for like I was a stand-up comedian for 7 years. I did improv for 3 years, and I was a comedy writer for Bubble Gang, which is like the SNL here of the Philippines, and then eventually became cast. So content is something that I kind of do have. I feel it's it's part of my strengths. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna kind of try to do this. So what I did is, I think within a week of what I did, I pitched something to Predator, Philippines Acer Predator. I pitched a coaching series for Dota, and it was with Purge. He's a personality, and they pick it up, and we did like a 2-season series, and that kind of that paid the bills for the month and the next month. So. I'm just not one to. I want to find solutions. Yes, I'll feel bad. Yes, I'll think, but I'm not one to kind of stay in there. So I just kind of, all right, what can we do to kind of solve the problem? And yeah, that it kind of started from there. In terms of transitioning to something else.
Was putting together a pitch like that, like, was that something new for you, or had you done stuff like that before? This was just for kind of a different work environment.
I've done stuff like that before, so I kind of knew what I was doing. In terms of, I did it for a few projects before with events, and I just kind of figured out how I want to do it better, because a pitch deck is very, very important. It has to you have to give the client exactly what they can expect, exactly references of your work, results, if you can give them results of what you've done in the past. And of course, credibility in regards to yourself as the person, you know, trying to provide a service, basically, provide value for them. So I kind of had experience doing it. It was definitely, I think, gave me a little bit of an edge because I understood what it meant. I'm very particular with my profile. Lewis mentioned it. Like, I do put details that I feel, what would the client want that will kind of give them, that will get me to earn their trust, or like or just give me a little bit of nod, like, okay, this is someone who definitely has an attention to detail and understands what it takes to deliver. So those are always things I think about. when I put something together. That's why I always really invested in my profile. It took me like a year or 2 years to put together my website. I wanted to do it properly and put together my body of work in a way that would earn trust, or earn like, okay, this is a person who has experience and knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. Oh, sorry, Lewis. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say too, like, you know, one of the things that you know, I noticed is, you know, you have a site, and one of the things, like, having worked with talent in the past and before, a lot of times you're lucky if you can get an email on the Twitter profile.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know you're really active on social media, but, you know, just so people know, like, you know, they might think like, who looks at a website anymore these days? Like, has that been something that's you found that's generated leads or generated opportunities? Like, what have you found has been like your best funnel to like kind of find jobs and stuff?
I think the best way to kind of, well, you have to deliver. You have to be good enough. I think that's just it, right? Like if you have the best website and the best profile, best looking, but when you're out there and it's time to deliver and you don't, that's your last job, at least with them, right? So the number one thing first is to be good enough. So you have to put in the work, and nothing with hosting. It's not really something you can teach. It's something you need to do, as with most things, right? So just getting on stage, just doing as much as you can, learning, growing, evolving. Never settling for just like, you know, because sometimes if you kind of, you know, you've made a certain amount of success, if you get complacent, then, you know, it's just the next person who's hungry is going to come in, and that's just the nature of things, period. So just get good enough first. I think that's what's going to get you work. Like, you can have no profile, no nothing, no everything. I know a lot of talent who have none of that, but they're good. They're just they're just good, man. They're the best. But if you have that skill and you have a good portfolio and you present professionally, then there's a very good chance that you will get consistent work and, you know, be respected by your peers and the people you work with in regards to, okay, this person is definitely someone you can depend on. So, yeah, first and foremost, be good enough. If you're not, then there's what do you have to build around, right? What do you have to build around? Like, you know, I have a really good portfolio. Look at it. Yeah, it's really, really nice. Yeah. And then it's a mess,
Looks
right?
nice, but no practice.
Like Eri, you were shit. I'm just like, but I have a really good portfolio. You know, I mean, you know, it's just, you know what I mean? So, yeah, first and foremost, what will get you the work is if you're good enough, and then push past that and just keep at it. If you build a portfolio, then your work will speak for itself, and your portfolio just, you know, adds to that. You know, your portfolio will open a door, but, you know, more doors will only open if you're good enough.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, again, it was something we were talking about just before kind of we got the show going. I mean, you even have like a section on your site where it's like, this is all the equipment I'm using. Just so you know, which I know, because Lewis, you're a producer of a lot of events. You mentioned that specifically is like crazy useful as someone that's going to be booking someone that's working from home, like knowing those tools.
Did it help, Lewis? Did it help?
Yeah.
Did that kind of was that a nice little check?
So you know, previously I was doing a lot of well, just like you, when the pandemic hit, we had all these events lined up, you know, traveling to Australia, traveling to China, and all of a sudden it went from, you know, not having an event to like everything's going to be offline, right? So we basically, and in fact, it was in such lockdown that we actually had to bring all the production equipment in my home, and me and my roommate were producing shows from the extra living room space. And one of the ones was we had brought in some new hosts and some new talent, and you know, they were like, yeah, sure, I can cast from home, and we did the first episode, and just the audio was terrible, and we're like, what's going on? It's like, well, you know, I'm on my laptop in the living room, and it's like, okay,
in the living room. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
In the living room.
Are you connected to the internet? Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm just connected to the Wi-Fi. So
oh, that's great.
yeah, that's something I noticed, is that you listed the computer that you have, you know, all the microphone, all the camera equipment. So I guess kind of what motivated you to kind of put that in your profile?
I just it just earns a little bit of like, it'll get the client to say, oh, okay, this is, if you're if you're production, you would appreciate it. You'd be like, good equipment. Okay, that's decent equipment. You know what I mean? So I just know that with the nature for work from home events, equipment is so important. I even had a friend saying, Eri, definitely add that to your fee because that's something you invest on. Like, have an equipment fee because these are all equipments that are not cheap and they are good enough for international. If you were to broadcast an international event, this equipment is really good enough. You have a LAN. Yeah, I have a LAN connection. I have a backup LAN connection. I think the backup LAN connection is a really big plus because I have two. I have two ISPs. So in case one fails, I plug the other one in, and we're good. Which happened at an event a minute before I was about to go on, and they're just like, it dropped. So I said, okay, give me a minute, plug it in, restarted the computer because it's not gonna register, right? So restarted, and was able to start. So it's really these things where I understand what you need to be able to deliver in terms of my job as a working from home. I think it's just important that the people that are considering to hire you know that you have the equipment to deliver because that definitely sets you apart for sure.
Yeah, just following up on that. So, what would say be one piece of equipment that made your job easier? And then do you think there's a piece of equipment that maybe like it doesn't necessarily make your setup easier, but that's kind of like what got the clients to like agree and want to keep working with you?
Lights. Lights, I think, is a big. Lights is a big, yeah. I think because if you have a C920, this is a A6000, right? But if you have good lights, it makes even just a C920 camera look pretty decent. So I would say if you properly light yourself, and what I did is I had a really a very very respected photographer here. Again, I kind of tapped into my market with weddings, and I said, "Do you want to do like a stream where you teach people how to light work from home setup?" And this guy is he's a master of lights. Jiggy Alhindrino, shout out to you. So he helped me out. So I kind of figured out how to do it, and you don't have to go expensive lights. You can just get. There's so many lights that just put a diffuser, just put like white paper, you're good, man. Like, and then it sounds soft or bounce it off the wall. Lights for me would be the number one, and a decent mic, even just a USB mic, because most people really don't tell the difference. But just I would say a decent mic, lights. The camera you can really just kind of you don't have to allot so much on that, but it is nice if you have a nice, of course. SLR camera, that always is a nice plus, but it's not necessary, especially in most cases as a host. Sometimes you're a little box, you know what I mean? So much of the quality might not really be appreciated sometimes, but I mean, a good camera is good. But I would say lights, a decent mic, you can get a good mic for like $100, and I would say go LAN connection. Do not ever host. Invest in a LAN. Buy the LAN cable, buy the 10-meter LAN cable, even if it's all the way downstairs, even if the modem's down, even if the router's all the way down. Buy the LAN connection because Wi-Fi will just be a nightmare for production. So I would say lights, mic, LAN cable.
This is like all the stuff that I remember when I first started getting into like the production side of things. This is all the stuff that Lewis was preaching from, like, because Lewis was my like guru of person to ask for anything. And the exact like lighting was huge for me because I was just like, camera, you turn it on, you can see you're all good. But then when Lewis started teaching me, like, no, you need to you need to light this properly. I was like, wow, that looks
like, I know
so
Lewis
much better.
I know Lewis appreciates the backlight. Like here, just the light here, because that creates nice contrast between the subject and thing. And my lights are bouncing off. That's something I learned through just kind of researching. And it just, I know I can do more with this setup by kind of tweaking the settings of my camera as well. I know that. But yeah, it really makes such a difference, man. Lights, like you guys' lights are very, very good. Like I can see that. Yeah, it really makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it really, really does. Taking it back to talking about working from home, like when it comes to kind of hosting these events and running these events, what are kind of the differences? I mean, other than obviously you're not there, but like what are the kind of differences that you're noticing from doing this work from home stuff versus being there? Like, has there been a big difference in terms of how you're
Absolutely.
doing the content?
Great question. I think the main difference is you don't have a crowd. You don't feed off anything. There's no energy. There's none that pulse that you usually get with the crowd, that connection you usually have. You don't have that. And the trick with that, if you're doing a live event, if you're hosting a live event, is to always have a window that has a comment. Because you engage with comments. That's going to be your pulse. That is the replacement for going back and forth with your audience. Because if you engage people, if anyone's acknowledging the comments, then you create a connection. And that's how you create that connection with the audience. A lot of hosts kind of don't think about this based on just my conversations. But hosts who do understand this, it is so valuable. Engaging the comments, basically engaging the crowd. That's what it is. Engaging the comment is basically talking to the crowd. That is the equivalent of that. And a lot of events actually don't think about that. A lot of brands that I've worked with don't even consider it. So I always request, especially for doing a studio chroma setup, I'm like the director asks, you think we can have this flat screen with the comments just so that I can just go back and forth with them? And it's just such a different atmosphere. It's so different. It's there's a back and forth now, rather than just speaking. You know, if not, you're just looking, right? If you're the audience sitting, you're just like, yeah, he's talking. Yeah, I'm listening. But if you kind of type something like hi, I'm just like, oh, hi to you. Let's say Leslie, like Leslie types. Leslie's just watching, but he says like hello. I like hi Leslie, and you're just like, oh, hi Leslie, that's me. Hi, you know. So engaging in the comments is, I think, very, very, very important. The main difference was not having an audience, but having chat, basically Twitch chat. You know, if you're a streamer, you understand this, but if you're a host that never streamed, then it's really not something you think about. So I think engaging with the comments in the chat is very, very, very important.
I completely agree, and it's something because you've worked in the gaming world a lot, so
Yes.
you're very aware of Twitch and Twitch culture and the chat and all stuff like that. But I would imagine because you do a lot of weddings and stuff like
Yes.
that was kind of the thing. I imagine you would find a lot of peers in that industry that don't necessarily think, like particularly transitioning. Like, has that transitioned to working from home much? Like, were people doing remote weddings that you could MC, or was anything like that?
Weddings, no. What usually happens is it's a very small group, and a good friend of mine at the Mongson actually started his own company in terms of Experience Live. Basically, it's basically putting people through a Zoom call or a Facebook group and streaming what's happening. And then sometimes you would flash them onto the screen. So you would still hit the requirement of the the maximum amount of people, which is sometimes like 20 to 30 people within the venue, depending on, you know, the IATF rules. And you would stream it so that people can still be part of that celebration through streaming. And he kind of popped off with that. Now he has two things. This good friend of mine, colleague of mine, Atom. So he has his hosting career again, and now he has Experience Live, which is basically live coverage of events through streaming, which I think has been the adjustment for celebrations. But in terms of having it like this, it's for weddings, no, but for corporate, for sure, yes.
So you say you've done a lot of corporate work in that sense.
Oh yeah,
as well?
absolutely, yeah. I'm doing a few coming in, but yeah, I did a lot of corporate work within this past 2 years.
What does, like, particularly in a work from home kind of setup? Because I have a friend who they run a online show where people can dial in and play games on their smartphone, like for a browser or stuff like that, which is pretty cool. But they managed to transition that to a similar thing, like working for corporations who wanted their parties, but they wanted them over Zoom. So you could do this whole thing online. What was you doing, like? So a lot of hosting of events, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, awards nights, or sales rallies, or brand lunches, or press launches, like I just did one for Acer for their Q4 with the media. So you talk to the CEO, talk about your achievements, what you reach, and what look forward to. With, of course, friends from the media, kind of covering the story and being part of the chat there. So it's engaging the friends from the media and everything, or just having an event where it's either a milestone celebration or trying to get people going in terms of motivating for the goals for the next quarter. These are things that I did for a very, very long time as well as a host. And that actually, I've been doing a lot of that. And I've been doing most of that here, actually, where this setup now.
So I suppose, before we start talking about some other stuff, we've touched on a number of things, like from tech to, practice and stuff like that. But if you were to give someone, say, in a similar position to yourself, or you were to give them a piece of advice for transitioning to working from home, would you say that there was like a piece of advice that someone said, what one thing would you tell me? I'm thinking of doing this. What's the one thing that's going to make it better for me? Like, do you have a tip like that?
I would say for mostly everyone, I mean, bottom line, regardless of what you're doing, it's all about being able to communicate the best you can with the people, right? Like with whoever you're communicating with. If you don't have good equipment, then it's hard to do that. Like if you have a mic that kind of is like goes through the reds, right? And you can hear the background, or you can hear people, you can hear people in the background, or the car driving by, and all of those things, then you can't really communicate effectively in regards to whatever you're getting into. So showing that you invest in proper equipment, and it doesn't have to be expensive, like we spoke about a while ago, shows that you care about connecting and communicating with the people that you're going to be doing business with and providing value for. That's it. I would say just invest in the proper equipment so that you can communicate and connect with the people you're going to be serving or providing value for. And that definitely, I think, kind of hits whatever thing you're going to get into.
Yeah,
I completely agree. Sorry, go ahead, Lewis.
I think one thing too, kind of just going into the last portion here. How do you feel like things are going to go, with the future of this? Like, do you feel like now, like, Pandora's box is open and this is just going to be the way things are going forward? Like, more people are going to pivot to online. Like, I'm sure you've seen, like, Apple and Microsoft do these amazing like pre-produced videos, whereas before it was just doing something live. Like, how do you feel the future is going to be with this type of stuff?
Very, very good for all of us in events, because now you'd now have, before we had events, and that already provided so much work for all of us. And now you have the online space, you have the digital space, you have digital events now. So I don't think, I think the hardest part of, because this probably is going to happen like maybe a year, 5 years down the line, right, for us. But the hardest part with kind of doing something new is just doing it, right? Like getting the people that make the decisions to be open to trying something new, because why try something new if you already have something that works, right? So now all of these brands, everything, all the people making decisions have now experienced online events, and they're like, oh, this is great too. We can do this as well. So they tried it, they had to. And now you have both. So I think people in events, especially if you have good equipment and you're good enough and you already have respect from your peers, can look forward to more events, just more, because there's just so many ways to mount an event now. It can be from home, or it can be live, or from a studio even. I know productions have invested millions in studio equipment because they see, things are gonna basically kind of move forward here. Because it's cheaper to put up a digital event. Like, it's compared to like hiring the space, booking the venue. It has its own problems, naturally, right? But if you're looking for the cost in terms of manpower and what you save, it is a little bit easier on the cost, depending on what you want for that event, of course. But just in itself, it is more economical, especially if you have a certain type of event with a certain type of budget, to do it online. So more work for anyone in events, I think. I think that's something we can look forward to.
And having said that, oh, sorry, Chris. But I'm
probably gonna say the same thing as you. Go ahead.
Having said that, like, do you miss it a little bit? Are you happy to kind of get out there back in the world again?
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah, I miss it. I mean, I miss nothing beats the human connection, right? I mean, nothing beats that. So, hell yeah, I miss it. I miss the laughter. I miss the roar of the crowd. I've been able to do a little bit more weddings now, and just to hear people laugh has been exhilarating. You definitely take those things for granted. But on the opposite side, I've also, I think, become a lot happier because I realized, because I was a workaholic. I would work, man. Lewis, you know me, man. I was working straight. It's just, you just on autopilot mode, and I think that's something we all kind of realize, where how important family is, how important just being home, getting the chance to just have that and realize what's important. And for me, I think that has also enabled me to become a better version of myself, which ultimately affects the kind of work I do, right? So I feel that it was a really nice hard reset, especially if it kind of sorts out your priorities in a better way. So yeah, man, I think I did miss it, but I think I've grown in a way that was very, very good in terms of me as a person, and that only makes the work better, right? So yeah, in that aspect for sure.
Yeah, I strongly agree, and that is basically exactly what I was going to ask. 100%. So yeah, no, that is good to know, man. That is good to know. And yeah, I mean, Lewis, do we want to follow up with anything else?
I think that covers most of it. I guess, yeah. I mean, thank you for joining us on this, Eri.
Yeah,
But
man.
most importantly, where do people find you? How do they book you? Are you already booked up for the year? I mean, are there any slots open? Where do people get a hold of
I
you?
got a few still open. I'm aiming for the bingo. Like, I've never bingoed before. A bingo is like a term in at least in our space, that if you get your entire calendar booked. So I've been close to a bingo, but I've never had that in my career yet. But no, if you guys want to get in touch, you can check out my handle's there. Thank you for putting that on the screen. I appreciate that. That's my handle for everything: IG, Facebook, and TikTok and Twitter as well. You can get in touch with me at host@erineeman.com. Or you can also go to my website, erineeman.com. All the details are there. My body of work is there if you just want to see like my experience, of course, in the industries. And yeah, that's it. If you want to get in touch, I'd be happy to connect with you.
Eri, thank you so much for joining us on this very first episode of the Work From Home cast here.
Oh, I popped the cherry. Hey,
yeah, it's you, man.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm
so
honored.
much.
I'm honored. All right, we'll never forget this. Yeah,
I
okay.
we won't. But, yeah, thank you so much for being here. Honestly, if anyone can help Eri get that bingo, I'm all for it, because you are a professional. A lot of the stuff you say is incredibly inspiring. Like I said, just looking through your website myself, I was like, man, I gotta start working on getting my stuff in order. Like,
it helps. It helps.
Oh, no, honestly, and a lot of that stuff is so like, particularly like Lewis said, like about listing the equipment you've got and everything. That's such a thing that as soon as it was mentioned, I was like, why have I never thought to do that? Like, that's such a good, useful thing for everyone on both sides. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. This wraps up the very first episode of the Work From Home cast. Lewis, take us out.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Eri, again.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're hoping to continue this as an ongoing series. If you're watching this likely on YouTube or on our podcast page, make sure to like, click, subscribe, do all those good things. Thanks again, Chris. Thanks again, Eri. And we'll catch you on the next one.